Hi, I'm Tom, and I've never seen the Titanic, but I have seen The Room at least 3 times.
And I'm Sean, and I think Forrest Gump is fine. There, I said it.
And this is Flix and Flops, the podcast where we watch movies, talk nonsense.
And pretend to know what we're doing.
Grab your snacks, lower your expectations, and let's ruin some cinema together.
Because nothing says film analysis like two friends arguing over whether Nicolas Cage is a genius or just bored.
And welcome back to another episode of Flix and Flops. Sean and I sat down and watched a newer movie, actually. It's The Long Walk. And Sean, I'll let you have the first crack at it. Overall, I thought it was great, but what are your thoughts?
Well, for one thing, a lot of sitting on our end, not a lot of walking. So we kind of already failed the challenge. But no, like Stephen King movies in general, anything adapted by him, you kind of fall into a couple categories. It's either pure ass or absolute cinema. And it usually depends on the kind of genre of book. Now, it's interesting with The Long Walk. It was his first book ever written, not first book released, but first book written when he was like a freshman in college, of course, in Maine. And of course, I'm talking to Tommy at the beginning of this movie. I'm like, huh, this looks like in a pretty like rural area, like not even thinking it's like a Stephen King movie. And it's like, nope, we're up here in northern Maine, just like loving it. Like, oh yeah, I'm from Freeport, Maine, like all that. But straight up, I knew like probably not even 5-10 minutes into it that we were in for a really interesting character study of these guys because I mean, you're throwing them into like dystopian 1970s, which is interesting because a lot of these like alternate reality movies, like alternate timelines, I feel like they always like gravitate towards like I don't know, like the 50 like right after World War II, the modern times, etc. Like this one, I said to Tommy, I'm like they keep talking about all the they keep talking about how the war impacted the country, and I'm like, to be honest, I'm like, which one? Like, did the Korean War do it? Did the Vietnam War do it? Like, I mean, and that's what's cool about this movie is that it leaves you asking questions like that. But as we always talk about here on Flicks and Flops, fuck movies that can't, show and not tell. Like, like if they can't show it and they have to tell you it, it's not a good movie. And this movie literally was like the definition of that. I was so thoroughly impressed from the jump.
I mean, I really like that there's ambiguity around what the war is. When we were watching it, I had the idea that it might be this kind of like civil war. It seems like almost, and they kind of drop a little bit of hints throughout the movie. They have Mark Hamill's character, the Major, being like, "We're gonna be number one again. We're gonna be the best country in the world." And it's like, I love that they left that up to you of like you decide what fits best in your kind of mental narrative of what really ruined the country here. But I thought overall it was such an interesting movie. I mean, the cast alone, Mark Hamill is awesome in everything he's in. As the Major, I
Mhm.
love that he doesn't even have a name; it's just the Major, right? It's like almost like this mythical figure to all the boys. So you have the whole movie takes place in, like Sean said, kind of like 1970s ish around that time, and clearly America's going through this economic struggle. And every year they have one boy, like teenager, from each state in the country sign up voluntarily, sign up for this thing called the long walk. And you have to be able to walk 3 miles an hour, and you get 3 warnings. And after the third warning, you die. And you get these warnings by falling behind, where if you're not keeping up that 3 mile an hour pace, if you stop, you can't stop to sleep, eat, anything. You have to keep going. And they keep going till there's one person left. And once you get to that last person, then they say, okay, you won the long walk. You get whatever your heart most desires, and you get a ton of money, like a fuck ton of money. So we have our characters of Cooper Hoffman, who is Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid. Wow, I was gonna say Dustin Hoffman. Philip Seymour Hoffman's kid, which I didn't even know he had like that. I didn't know he had a son like that, so that's really cool. But he played Ray Garrity, who's one of our main characters, really, alongside David Johnson, who played Pete McVeers. He was phenomenal in this movie because I don't know if you saw Alien Romulus when that came out, but he was Andy the android in that movie, and he is just awesome because he does. It's really a testament to his acting in both movies, going from a complete like by the numbers android, very logical, very prone to like no emotions, nothing, to the character in this is completely driven by emotions and wears his heart on his sleeve. So it's like a completely different kind of character in that sense. And they have this character who I kept referring to as was Discount Kurt Cobain, which was Charlie Plummer as Gary Barkovich.
Yeah.
Barkovich was a great character too because he's almost like the antagonist to the rest of the group at times. Because they would always just be like, "Oh, Barkovich is the annoying one. He's doing all this stuff," but he actually ends up getting a kid killed unintentionally, and he feels bad about it the entire rest of the movie. But this movie is just so well done. I think it's a real kind of study on the difference of being motivated by something like revenge and being motivated by a change in the world. You find out throughout the movie each boy's motivation for wanting to take part in the walk. And you find out McVrie's his whole thing is he just wants to make the world a better place. That's all he cares about. And he's trying to be positive. You know, he wants to be uplifting. He's there to help everybody. And it's such an event too where everyone's out for themselves. He's picking other people up. He's letting them sleep on him kind of like rest their head on his shoulder and he keeps them walking, keeps them forward. He's always looking out for his fellow what they call the four musketeers is what they call the closest boys. So he's always looking out for his friends. But then you have someone like Ray Garrity, who his whole point is he's motivated by revenge. Because we find out his dad was killed by the major for having, like thoughts against the state, that kind of like ideology, and teaching his son that. So his motivation was, I'm going to win this. I'm going to ask for a rifle, and I'm going to kill the major. And I think it's just such an interesting dichotomy of having that and looking at saying, what are these two motivations? And how do you get to a certain point where one of them has to win? What is it going to be?
Yeah, what's interesting is, like, from the jump, I mean, we expected it to be pretty serious, but the amount of, like, philosophical discussions they bring into it, I mean, like what Tommy's saying, like, the sign up is technically voluntary, but one of the first major discussions they have is like, well, like, is there anyone you know that, like, didn't sign up for it? And, like, pretty much no one can name it. Like, no, yeah, everyone signs up for it. And it's just interesting that they create this, massive spectacle that's kind of meant to inspire patriotism, and, like, they make a big deal being like, okay, after the long walk, there's like always a jump in production, which, like, is funny that they do it annually and there's a jump in production, yet they're still struggling. I mean, what does that tell you right there? But it's just from the jump, they're really focused on these kind of like philosophical debates, and that's what makes Garrity and McVrie's relationship so interesting. I mean, their chemistry was phenomenal. Like, fun fact about Cooper Hoffman, he's only been acting for about 4 years. And I told Tommy this early on when we were watching the movie that apparently one of his father's final wishes was that he doesn't become an actor, which, is an interesting decision because, well, I mean, he was I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman really is kind of a textbook, like, troubled artist. That's a whole another rabbit hole to go into, but, like, someone like him who really throws himself into the craft, really kind of is willing to put himself all out there, dive into the characters. I mean, we've seen so many case studies with it. I mean, Heath Ledger, etc. It can really kinda get you that way, and I see a lot of, you know I see a lot of his own uniqueness in him, in Cooper Hoffman, but I see kind of that raw talent too, and it's interesting too because so Paul Thomas Anderson was Philip Seymour Hoffman's main collaborator. Not to go dive into a whole tangent here, but he was his main collaborator, and Philip Seymour Hoffman had kind of communicated that to him, and I'm just like, after seeing this movie, I'm just like, there's no universe Cooper Hoffman should not, be a star. Like, these, I mean, I just found out the other day actually that Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson are going to be starring in another movie with Paul Dano. They're gonna be like a trio. I forget what the exact plot is, but like there are they Hollywood has recognized that these two are like the next big duo. I mean, there's some interesting duos like you get in Bullet Train, like what's it, Aaron Taylor Johnson and I'm blanking on the guy's name, but Lemon and the brothers in that movie have great chemistry, and they've been in a bunch. Um, but regardless, like this movie brings a lot to the table on a philosophical and character level. I mean, it's not afraid to get gory. Let's just put that right there. I mean, when Curly gets the Charlie horse and just gets straight, I was half expecting the kills to not be on screen, and some of them aren't. And I think the choices of when they are and aren't really hit home for me on like a dramatic level. Like they sometimes they really want to make you feel it. Other times they want you to be almost as desensitized as most of the characters are. Because really, the only character who consistently freaks out at people getting killed is Ray Garrity. Which I mean, when you see the way his dad gets executed later on in the movie, I mean, you can't blame the guy. But it's really interesting to see where they took this movie. I mean, because really the whole concept is okay. These guys are basically walking in a straight line for 331 miles. I think was the final number. Which like Tom and I were like doing mental math the entire time, and we're like, how are they still alive? But really, really some thought provoking stuff in this movie for a movie that's basically just a bunch of boys walking and getting shot.
I mean, I feel like it's funny. I was thinking about this a lot too. I think the violence actually plays a big role in the movie itself. So when you think about it, you see Curly die, and it's like very visceral, right? He gets the Charlie horse, he can't keep up, he gets down on his knees, and he's screaming for his life. And they come over, put a rifle to his head, and they show you the bullet go through his head, like through his face and everything. Like it's very
Oh,
visceral. So it's like, and all the boys start realizing like how serious they knew this would happen, but then it starts kind of, you can see the gears going in their heads of like, oh my god,
mm-hmm.
this is really something serious. And it almost feels like as the movie goes on, depending on what happens, you don't see it on screen as much. And I think part of it is like kind of like you said, is the desensitization, if that's even a word. I'm just making it up, but we're gonna roll with it.
I
Of
think you're
being,
there.
it's gotta be right. But
Yeah.
like being so desensitized to violence, it's almost like a commentary on what our society is now, right? Like you look at how everything is, and so many people, since we're all chronically online, and people have seen everything. So like violence doesn't really mean anything to a lot of people now. So they see about it on TV, they see about it whenever they're doom scrolling. So it's just like another thing. So to have that so in your face, and there's some really intense scenes. There's one kid who gets his legs run over by a tank, and they leave him there.
Oh.
They just leave him there to die. And it's like a lot of it is really intense to watch. Even Hank Olson, one of the other boys, part of the Musketeers group, at one point he's so tired he can't keep up with it that he kind of, it's nighttime and he starts charging at the military that's right behind them, making up the convoy. And instead of shooting him in the head, they shoot him once in the stomach to let him bleed to death, and he starts screaming, "I'm sorry. I did it wrong. I'm sorry." And all the other boys, they want to go help, but they're like, "No, we can't. They won't put him out of his misery because they want us to learn a lesson." And it's so like intense in that sense, and the movie picks up like almost right away, right? You have this like first couple of scenes of them getting ready to go on the walk, and even the first scene of Garrity and his mom, right? The mom's dropping him off, and as he's about to get out of the car, she has a breakdown, and she's like, "No, no, 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 stay! Come on, you can back out. You can do it." It's like you know that it's gonna be something hard to watch just from that. And honestly, I think you're right. Uh, Cooper Hoffman is phenomenally talented because there's a great scene when they're in the Freeport area, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
sees his mom, and he sees her on the side of the road, and he part of the rules is you're not allowed to step off the highway. It's just one long stretch of highway. If you step off the highway, they shoot you instantaneously. He sees his mom and he starts running over to his mom, and you can hear them in the background. They're like, whatever number he is, they're like, number 47, warning one. And it's like, he's like, no, mom, I'm so sorry. Please, mom, please. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I can quit right now. And thankfully, McVreeze saves him. And he's like, you got to keep moving. You do not stop. Like, you'll see her when this is all done. Just keep moving. But it's like in that scene in and of itself, and even I'm even getting goosebumps talking about it because it's just like it's so emotionally gut wrenching, and it fits in really well when Garrity and McVreeze have this whole conversation back and forth, where McVreeze is like, "Hey, you know what? You want to go kill the major, and that's fine, but you're not living to make change at that point." He's like, "I see every day as the beauty in the world. Like they might see a family on the side of the road, and he's like, look at that. I see a family having a good day together." Whereas what you're seeing is they're watching us as a spectacle. And it's like they kind of have this whole like thing back and forth for a lot of the movie of they're supporting each other, but they're trying to get each other almost to sway to the other's point of view. And it's really like I did not expect that level of like psychology from a movie like this. You know, when you think Stephen King, you usually think of something scary and obviously set in Maine like it. But this wasn't really so much as like scary supernatural or anything. It was more scary of like psychological thriller, if that kind
Mhm.
of makes sense in that way. But I don't know. I think it's so impactful, and especially we'll go over this too. Of the ending of the movie, where
Oh.
it's it's gut wrenching when you have the two boys left. You have Garrity and McVreeze. This whole time they've been supporting each other. You know, only one of them can win,
Mhm.
and it's actually a great callback because McVreeze says earlier on in the movie, he's like, you know, when it comes down to it, if I'm one of the last remaining people, I'm just gonna sit on down, and I'm gonna let whoever win because I'm not here for the money. And at the end, it seems like he's about to do that, so Garrity kind of gets him up and pushes him forward. Garrity sits down, and it's like almost it's like callback to the beginning, but Garrity's in the other role instead, where Garrity's like, you are going to do something positive in this world. You take that chance and let me be the sacrifice.
Yeah, it's heavy for sure. And I will say, go as far as the ending goes, most people this movie is generally considered to be, by critics like phenomenal. But the one complaint I keep seeing, and it's the one thing that I remember you instantly said it, and I've ruminated on it for a couple days now, and I the ending, like, right after that happens and Garrity gets, assassinated and, McFreeze decides to take up, his mission, take the route. He's abandoned the peace in, you know, the pursuit of vengeance for Garrity. It's twofold because he's fulfilling Garrity's wish, but he's also, he's also now had his own desire for vengeance because of how close he was with him. And, after he does it, the whole plan was like, okay, I'm going to ask for the gun and they have to give it to me. Um, and they give him the gun and the major tries to talk him out of it. I mean, that ain't working. I mean, you think for a minute he might cave, but you see how strong McFree's character is in the whole movie. And you know the minute he grabs it, he's going to do it. But the thing with the ambiguity is that I love it for the majority of the movie, but then he after he kills the major, the movie basically goes silent. He turns around and he just keeps walking down the street, and there's no real consequences for his action or anything. Now, I'm of two minds. Like, one, how could there not be consequences for this? But two, and this kind of came into my mind as we've been talking about it, is that a big portion of the movie is how, desensitized everyone is to kind of their situation. I mean, think about it. This long walk is literally televised. That like people are so accustomed to the ugliness of the world that people genuinely view watching people die as entertainment. Like you see a literal crowd of people cheering and like them on when McVries and Garrity make it to the big city, you know, because they only start letting crowds watch, you know, when it's down to two people. But you see all these like different locals throughout the 300 plus mile walk. And one of them was interesting. It was a family. And this is like during a big debate. Pete and him had the aforementioned debate between McVries and Garrity about vengeance versus peace. And I remember McVries says something to the effect of like, well, you know, vengeance is one thing, but you know, love is really kind of the guiding thing. And you see a family right there with love. Love is what's going to, you know, kind of, you know, make the world a better place. And it's just interesting that the vengeance that he kind of commits on the major is really, when you think about it, out of a sense of brotherly love and, you know, perhaps more for Garrity, you know? I mean, they really bond. They quite literally lean on each other's shoulder like they are passed out sleeping while walking multiple times in the movie. I mean, they really go through hell. It's a lot. And one thing I just want to touch on too is so obviously you have like the four kind of positive guys. You got Garrity, you got McVries, you got Olson, and you got Art. Those are the four musketeers. But even three, like I'd call it like pseudo antagonist characters, which we've talked about Barkovich, but also Collie Parker and Billy Stebbins. And Stebbins has one of the most interesting arcs that I'll let you touch on. But I will say that all three of them, all three of the pseudo antagonists, it's not. I call them that because it's this movie is not black and white. It's very gray. I mean, the whole debate between peace and vengeance and how it actually plays out is perfect evidence of that. But it's really interesting to see how they get these like pseudo redemption moments, yet also stay very true to each other at the same like true to their own characters at the same time. You know, because I mean at the end of the day, um, you know, some people are more good or some people are more evil than the rest. I mean, that's just, you know, sometimes people will hit the extreme of those emotions. But more often than not, people are complicated. And it's just really interesting to see a movie of people being put into quite literally the most like intense circumstances imaginable and seeing how their character stands the
I
test.
mean, it's really interesting to have characters that are supposedly teenagers get into these discussions of like really philosophical and in-depth life and death discussions. And I think that that's something that doesn't really get explored enough is that kind of like heavyweight look at life. But going back to Stebbins as a character, I think one of my very few gripes of the movie overall was Stebbins. I thought his character was very interesting, but very
Hmm.
predictable. I mean, as we're watching it, he's got this whole thing where they keep like it's not even subtly hinted. It's like he'll say a bunch of things throughout the movie. They're like, "How do you know so much about the long walk?" Like multiple times, and he's like, I've read books," and it's like, okay, well, he's clearly. I'm pretty sure I said to you at some point, like he's clearly involved in this somehow, and eventually he gets sick, right? And then he's got like internal bleeding.
Mhm.
He's got all this really bad stuff happening with him, and it's him, McVries, and Garrity. And as they're going, I'm pretty sure I turned to you. I'm like, he's the major's son, isn't he? And then like almost immediately they're like, "Why you still here?" Basically being like, "Dude, just leave." And he's like, "Well, I'm one of the major's illegitimate sons." And I was like, Okay." Like I did love though that it starts out where he's almost like against the musketeers in that group, and he's kind of like you said,
Mhm.
pseudo antagonist, right? He's kind of like busting their balls throughout the movie, and they're always like, "Dude, leave us alone." And it's always that kind of feeling where you never know, like, what people are in it for, and then you finally like, he keeps turning, and eventually, at the end of the movie, he has that great monologue where he's talking about being like, at the end of the day, like, I'm the carrot for the rabbits, right? Like, I'm the carrot to I'm like it's this whole discussion of being like, we're all just trapped in this cycle where we keep going, and we're on this belt like dogs on a racetrack, right? There's always a reward, and we're being
Yep.
dragged along and to chase like these rabbits that aren't real, and we just keep going on it every single time. And it's like it was
Mhm.
really cool to hear that kind of like viewpoint where they're all kind of nearing the end, and it starts to sink in for them. They're like, nothing's going to change. We're doing this, and it's going to remain the same because you can't wish for the walk to end either. They've kind of made that a point that they're like, no, you can't wish for the walk to end. So they're just like, we're stuck in this cycle, and we're just promoting this never-ending cycle of death and violence. And it was such an for a movie, like you said, for a movie that's just really people walking. It has so much to say, and it also like for a movie that doesn't have a variety of shots or really like a lot doesn't really have a lot of interesting like cinematic shots. It truly does a great job though of most of it is just like medium shots, but I'm like I feel like that's got to be intentional to make you feel like you're there too. Because if you do too many of these wide shots, close ups, it doesn't feel like that. But medium shots, you get like enough point of view that you feel like the street is like littered with these kids. And it's just such an interesting thing. And even one of the I think best scenes that really highlights the use of some of the violence in the movie too is the first time they get to like this hill. So they have a hill, it's about a steep incline. And
Oh
you've seen those
god.
signs when you drive, and it's got like the car going up the hill, and it's like 80% incline or whatever. So this is at night, it's like the first night. They're going up this hill, and you see like everyone's like sleepy, they're tired, but they got to keep the 3 mile an hour pace. So they're going up the hill,
Mhm.
and the trucks are behind them, and the trucks are just running people over, gunning people down when they fall down. It's like, but you don't
Yep.
see a lot of it, and I think not seeing it, and they mostly show it from like almost like Gary's point of view. Like it's solely focused on him in a lot of this, but I think it's really well
Mhm.
done where you can see like the flash from the gun in the background, but you don't see it because he's not seeing it. And it's almost that message of being like, this stuff is happening, power through. Like it's that almost like pure will of
Mhm.
survival. So he's going through that, and that's where the kid who's the one to write a book about the walk ends up snapping his ankle. They show that, which was
Oh.
you that was intense. You could hear it too. So they get there's like a very loud sound of like a bone snapping, and then they show you like his sock filling with blood. And at one point in the
Oh,
movie
yeah.
too, you see him, he's hobbling along, and they're like, "No, come on, man." He's like, I can't do it anymore." It's like it, seeing these like what are supposed to be teenagers. Obviously, they're full grown adults acting. Some of them might have been teenagers, but like
Mhm.
seeing these people that are supposed to be teenagers begging for their lives in these situations is just like it's so hard to watch, but it truly
Mhm.
was just one of those films that like you're sitting there and watching, you're like, I've never seen anything like this before. It's like you said we were watching, it's like I can see how the Hunger Games is heavily inspired by this much later on. Because the Hunger Games borrows a very
Mhm.
similar concept of like the US fell into turmoil, state sponsored event, violence kind of thing. Keep the masses entertained. But I know the director was actually Francis Lawrence, who did I Am Legend, which makes sense because it has like kind of like that
Yeah.
emptiness feel to it, where it's like there's no hope. That seems like
Mhm.
his kind of niche of movies is just like it's like the absolute worst part of humanity, and like also just there's nothing left to fight for. So what's the point? And I found it so fascinating. Like I was not expecting such a thought-provoking concept from this movie, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah. I feel much the same. I mean, I'll give a shout out to my little brother Matthew for giving, kind of the inspiration to give this a watch because Tommy and I, like we said a few podcasts ago, tried to see this in theaters, and damn you, Chunkies, for not having it when we wanted to. Um,
But they'll still sponsor us. We'll get there
yeah,
eventually.
no, we'll get there eventually. But it was funny, like there were things we noticed. I remember I said to him with Harkness when Harkness breaks his leg or the ankle breaks or whatever. He was like, "Oh my god, he heard that?" Like he was shocked that you heard that. I mean, that's just the attention to detail they really kind of take with this movie.
I mean,
Um,
it's just like a lot of it is just so well crafted. You know what I
mhm.
mean? It's like it's not the kind of movie where it's like it's not like a John Wick where it's just like over the top violence to look cool or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or it's not like a horror movie of violence to just be like gore and blood and violence. Like it's done in a way to accentuate the story, which is something I think gets lost in a lot of modern media.
Mhm.
Um, specifically looking at something like The Boys, right? Don't get me wrong, I love watching The Boys, but it feels like it almost lost the plot in terms of violence, where they're like, how over the top violent can we be? Which follows, more of that graphic novel that it's based on. But I think it's something that a lot of movies and TV shows have kind of lost the plot on in general
Mhm.
is violence isn't just a shock factor. Depending on what you're telling and what you're using it for, it can elevate the story, right? The violence in this, I feel like, is a necessary part of the story. Like, it wouldn't be the same movie if you never saw any of the violence and it's all off screen or it's all hinted at.
Mhm.
This movie be completely different. Like that scene, who was the kid that took the gun and killed one of the soldiers? Remember that?
That was that was Collie. That was Collie
Yeah,
Parker, yeah.
Collie was a great character too. And to have him do this kind of like self-sacrifice where he kills one of the soldiers and then kills himself
Mhm.
is just like such an unbelievably like dire situation where he's like, I'm done with this. I've seen the horror that this is causing and I'm out. But it's just like so it's so visceral and so intense, but it adds to the story. You know what I mean?
Mhm. It was so sick too. I love what they did with his character, because his actor in real life is Algonquin, from what do you call it? A First Nation reserve in Quebec, and he does a Algonquin battle cry. Almost the only thing I could compare it to is the in New Zealand the haka. He does like this battle cry. Um, right before he, takes his own life after killing the soldier and then getting shot in the stomach, which I thought was so cool because a lot of these characters, like the soldiers aren't afraid to make them suffer. Like they're not just like shooting them to kill; they're shooting them to make them suffer. Like I mean, it happens to the guy who got his legs run over with the tank. It happens to Hank. Um, and I love that they were able to connect kind of his native heritage to. I thought that was a good analogy of like taking your own taking your own destiny into your hands. I thought that was really deep, and that's not something that the movie sticks on for a while. But the movie has so many different small moments like that. Um, I can't believe we haven't talked about what the fuck Barkovich did because Barkovich is
Oh,
he provokes this guy Rank, who's just like a mild mannered kid, um, into attacking him. Like truly, just thinks he's just like your basic bully, but like not. But that's where it goes back to the gray because yeah, he's had a hard life. He's been an outcast, and like he kind of just been in his mind the dicking around, the bullying is his way of kind of building these bonds. But, I mean, he gets the kid killed. I mean, he trips, he can't get he oh my god, when the way he, like, skinned his knee and face, like, after falling and then
oh,
instantly gets shot. Like, so many, like it's not even just always when they get shot in this movie, where it's, like, the most jarring it's like stuff like that. I mean, like, think about the guy who, like, got completely naked and then got killed by them while taking a shit, like, I
I
don't
mean, that's one thing for me is I agree with you, it's not just the violence. For me, it's more of the lead up to the violence. So,
Mhm,
like, when Rank, Barkovich and Rank get into this whole thing where, Rank's trying to punch him and Barkovich dodges, so eventually he stumbles, and they show you him scratch his face on the pavement, scuff up his face, and for me, the most unsettling stuff is when the soldiers are walking over to him because you know what's about to happen, and it can't be stopped. Like,
mhm,
there's nothing anybody can do, so it's that inevitability of being like, "He's dead." And
yeah.
I do love that throughout the whole movie, Barkovich keeps trying to be like, "Hey, guys," like, he tries to be friendly with them, and they're like, "Get away, kid murderer, child murderer." Like, they really let him have it,
Oh, yeah.
which leads into the one of the best moments in the entire movie. Incredibly disturbing, but leads to a great moment of Barkovich talking with Garrity, and he's like, "Hey, I really didn't mean to get the kid killed. Like, you gotta understand, it was totally an accident, it wasn't my intention." And after he's like, "Hey, it's okay, man, it's okay." Garrity's trying to show him that forgiveness because he's learned that from McVree's, right?
Mhm.
That power of forgiveness, that power of there's good in people. Then Barkovich is like, "Okay, thanks for forgiving me." He goes, "By the way," and then he just stabs himself in the neck with a spoon multiple times and then just dies. And it's like, it's one of those things, and all the kids are like, "Fuck, what is this? Like, what just happened?"
Yeah.
Like, and it's not even they cut away. It's like they show him jabbing his neck and everything, and it's brutal. But it's like you had a great point when we were watching the movie. Barkovich keeps randomly. It's like he'll just keep going like, "Fuck, fuck" every time he like closes his
Oh,
eyes.
yeah, he literally has PTSD, like, from the
Yeah.
death. I mean, he said that's a moment where it's where he tells and not shows, but I mean, like, you can tell, like, for a guy who clearly had mental issues going into this, from the ostracization he's clearly experienced in what is already a cruel world, to experience that on a whole, but he can take, like, basic ostracization. It's when he is basically labeled a murderer. The minute that McVrees calls him a murderer, he has like this visceral reaction, like "Holy shit!" And that's where, like I keep reiterating, the complexity of these characters comes into play. Is Barkovich a good guy? No, not really. But is he a complete piece of shit who who maliciously wanted the kid to die? No. You instantly know that the minute that Rank gets shot. You can tell even before he starts like yelling like don't call me a murderer. You can see in his eyes he's just completely in shock as to what happened. And yeah, no, it's just so many interesting characters. Like I really it's one of those movies that like really wants you it wants you leave wanting more, you know? It leaves you wanting more. Like you want to see like what all their lives were like. I mean, like for Christ's sakes, like Hank Olson's character, when you find out that he has a wife, you're like, what the
Oh,
fuck? Like how? Like A, it's fucking insane you volunteered for this and have a wife, but at the same time, I mean, no one has a choice as far as volunteering for it. They all want to make their families' lives better. But also like the way um he talks about like some kind of like chauvinistic stuff, like yada yada, like kind of some misogynist stuff. You'd never pick, you kind of peg him for a hornball, but really he's kind of, but like he kind of has this like moral compass too. You do see that from his character. So to find out he has a wife, you're like, what? Like, I mean, that one threw me off more than I mean, the Stebbins twist, if you can even really call it that. I mean, believe me, I still like the way they played it out with his character because, when he kind of is able to shed his tough guy exterior and like actually tell McFreeze and Garrity that it was an honor to walk with them. Like I really felt that shit. Like it's just interesting. I really felt like um both of the main groups, the four musketeers and the three kind of, rough guys, I all think they were different sides of the same coin, just like
Yeah.
really there's this binding thing between all of them have their own kind of unique story. Some kind of gravitate towards each other, but at the end of the day, they all end up being wholly themselves in their final moments. Yeah, it's heavy, man. It's really heavy. And
I
I will say that, not to cut you off, but I will say that I was curious how much the movie stayed close to the book. And I gotta say the book seems solid. Like, don't get me wrong, but the changes they made, thank God they did, because it made the movie infinitely better. Like, they took a great basis and like shifted some stuff to, kind of make it a better product for film. And I love that they did that. And I will say, as much as I complained about the ending earlier, the ambiguity of it, if they did the ending from the book, which just to abbreviate it,
Is it a giant space turtle like in how they had in the book for it, where it's like it's this whole weird thing, and then all of a sudden it involves some really fucked up shit, and then a giant space turtle?
Mhm. No, it's not. So, basically, where it kind of deviates is, a lot of it stays the same, but where it really deviates is, so Stebbins tells him he's the son, and he does the whole rabbit concept, but they kind of explain it more in that, and I think this kind of fits in the movie, but he doesn't put it like this, where, like, the Major used him as a rabbit to cause, like, the walk to last longer, like, he was kinda like a pacemaker, almost, and to keep it going longer. And then it ends up being, what do you call it, Baker ends up, Art ends up killing himself. He doesn't die the way he died from the heart thing. And then McVrees ends up dying. Garrity tries to save him and fails, and McVrees dies, and then Garrity's beckoned by like a dark figure, and he's like gonna give up because Stebbins can't be beaten, and he like tries to tell Stebbins, and Stebbins like falls over dead, and then like he walks away from the Major and follows like the dark figure, declaring there's like still so far to walk, yada yada. Like I'm so glad they changed it from that. A lot of the really good core stuff they kept, but my god, I would have been pissed if that's how they did it, because, like, ugh, I don't know what you
I
think
mean,
about that, but I was so curious, and when I read that, I'm like, "Thank God the movie didn't go that route."
I much prefer the ending of the movie because it's much more impactful to have the two really, like, best of us characters in Garrity and McVrees having to finish this together
Mhm,
and knowing that one of them isn't gonna make it out, like, and I think it makes a lot more sense to have Garrity be the one who dies, because then it's more of a commentary on McVrees when he asks for the rifle, that it's like, he just witnessed to him what is one of the worst things in life, like, when McVrees talks about his background, it's so impactful and it's really depressing, incredibly sad, and yet he's still being like, "There's good in everything. There's always light. There's always this. I'm choosing to look at life in a positive way." So when he watches Garrity die, who died basically in the same way his father did, it's almost the exact same line too, where the Major's like, "God rest your soul, McGarrity," like that kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like he watches him get executed while just like on his knees, and you know that Garrity's given up, and he's like, "I can't beat this, and I can't beat the Major." And it shows that McVrees has given up too. That when he asked for the rifle, that means that he's like, "I have fully given up on
Mm,
hope, and there's nothing left for me, and there's nothing left for the walk. There's nothing left for this nation." Like, I prefer that and the message that that brings of how violence can corrupt even the best of us. Like,
mhm,
we can be desensitized, but only to a point. Because he kept watching everyone die, and he was like, "We just got to keep going, keep going, keep going." He could only take so much, and it's like that point that even the best of us can go to the most dark places in our lives, and it's just like I love that. I think that's a much better ending
mhm.
rather than have it be Garrity and walking off with a dark figure being like, "Oh, there's more to go." Like, that
Nah, nah.
that's kinda like the Stephen King thing where it's like everything about it is so good, and then the ending comes and you're like, "What the hell?"
Mhm.
Eh, like I was saying, it's like that's kind of the thing with it, where it's like, "Whoa, it's a really cool concept, really unique, really messed up, all this stuff." And then you get to the ending, you're like, "Whoa, space, alternate dimensions, space, like turtles. We live in alternate planes." You're like, what does this have to do with the rest of
Yeah,
it though?"
right? Like,
Like,
what's going on here?
so I think that the movie made a much better choice of ending it the way it did. I still am not 100% sold on that specific ending. I like
No,
the
I
message it
for
sends,
sure.
but I like the ambiguity too
Mhm.
of that. You know, having him walk away. It's just like I like that because it almost says like even though he did this, what's going to change now? Or is there just going to be another major? Is it going to follow the same path? That kind of thing. I think it's a little weird to have him just walk off into the rain in the dark, but you know, ambiguity. I'm not opposed to that, but I will say the movie answered one of my biggest questions though, which I really didn't need to see. But one of my questions was, what do you do if you need to shit or pee? Right?
Mhm.
I was like, Sean, what do you do when you need to go to the bathroom in this? They show you. They kids will just turn around and then they just start peeing while walking backwards, or they just drop their pants and they kind of like crab walk it, or they stop and they have no time to do anything else. They just like let it go and then pull their pants back up. And you're just like it's like it's very dehumanizing is what it is.
Mhm.
Like literally just treating them as numbers like animals, right? It was just such an impactful film in that way. And I really think like at the bare bones of it, it's something that everybody needs to see to really like understand. Cause it's not a movie. Like I didn't see a lot of advertisement for this and I didn't know how it was gonna be. And I joked around with Sean at the beginning of the movie. They have text on screen and I was like, ooh, text on screen, my favorite. Like usually when I see text on screen, I'm like, this is gonna be so bad. But the movie as a whole is just it's like hard to describe without being like you have to see this because even just
Mhm.
like even telling you about it doesn't do the movie justice, right? It's one
No.
of those things like you see it and you really understand how visceral it really was.
Mhm. For sure. I mean, I think all said and done, like this movie really leaves you with a lot to talk about, and I think Francis Lawrence couldn't have been a better choice for it because I mean, I said to Tommy like this movie had to have been an inspiration to The Hunger Games, because The Hunger Games was very much, kind of the same concept, right? So it's very interesting to me that he we get a guy who has done dystopian to the max with, I Am Legend and the entire Hunger Games series. It was a really good culmination to have him kind of tackle, um, this movie, and a lot to think about, and I gotta say, I really wish the best for all of these actors involved because they really gave their all on this movie. I was thoroughly impressed, and I am almost certain I will watch it again because there's so much we notice in just our first watch, but I'm like, I feel like there's even more to kind of um take away from it. On a not I mean, we've kind of spent this one being really serious, which is funny compared to the Hubie Halloween one. But I will say the one thing I said to Tom early on is like, God, the people who make those like kill count videos are gonna have a fucking field day with this, because like, especially with the scene on the hill, I was like, dude, where the fuck did everyone like? It
They
was
just disappeared.
yeah.
Like I will say in a more like lighthearted sense, this is something I've been thinking about since we watched it. How far do you think you'd make it? Because I think I have a general sense of how far I can go.
Hmm, interesting. I don't know. I don't know how long I'd make it. I mean, I've never had a Charlie horse, but I feel like given my luck, I'd
Wait,
prob
what do you mean you've never had a Charlie horse? Hold on.
I don't
What?
I don't think so. I mean, is that what they like?
You had to have
I
had a
mean,
Charlie horse.
I've had muscle cramps, but not like while I'm walking. Like, not
Do you just eat bananas all day, every day? Like, what are you doing?
first of all. Second of all, um, I don't know. I've never had one like while I'm going for a walk. I mean, I've had like a leg cramp. Like I don't know. I've never had one like the fucking visceral ass one he did. Okay, I've never had one where I was like, like flailing around and like felt like okay. Wow, man, really, you
I'm
really got.
incredibly jealous of you because I have had those and they suck. And
I.
it's like you can't walk when it happens. So like uh, I've I've come to realize if I was in this situation,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably make it. Let's see, you have to walk 3 miles an hour. I could probably go for like maybe 3 hours, and then after that, I don't think I could keep up the pace. It's like I don't think I have the endurance to match that.
Huh.
So like, especially overnight. Are you kidding? I'd be like, oh, my legs are cramping, and I would just die. I'd be like, oh, and I'd lay down and be like, all right, right here, come on, finish me. Like, I don't know. You gotta figure how long could you go on it?
Yeah, I don't know. 3 mile pace. I mean, I'm thinking I could do that for like maybe 6, 7 hours. Oh, 6, 7. No, but like actually, I think I could last maybe about that long. I don't know. I've done 3 mile an hour walk paces. I've done it like back to back a few times. Like I don't know. Shit, man. I think we got to go on a long walk.
I can't believe you just did 6, 7. Hey, you know we're not young enough to be doing 6, 7. We don't know what that is.
Maybe you don't, old man. But this is a new future for your
Ugh.
boy. So
The future is now.
true,
The future is now, old man.
truly, truly. Well, I think that's a good point to call it. I'm really interested to see what we end up finding next. I personally went to see Bugonia, and Tommy instantly was like, "Oh my god, fuck you! We should have watched that for the podcast." Which
I was distraught.
I
I was like, I saw the message from you and I was like, what the fuck?
I know,
I wanted to see that.
I know. Well, hey, we can still go see it. I mean, fun fact, Tommy. And I thought about this. We can see movies and not do it for the podcast. No, no, we actually can't. We have to do it for the podcast. This
No,
is
every movie but we must see together and it must be reviewed.
it's true. It's true. But there's some good movies. There's some interesting movies coming out towards the end of the year. So maybe we'll because I was thinking about it. We haven't been to the Holy Land in probably like a month or so. So we'll have to take a look. I mean, Predator Badlands. I don't think
Oh yeah.
I think that'd be a fun one. Christie, potentially. I don't know. Maybe another shitty one. Who's to say? Really, the world's our oyster. Maybe even Five Nights at Freddy's too.
You know what, we're getting near one of my favorite times of the year, as Red Letter Media calls it. Fuck you, it's January, where all the shit movies come out in January. Truly, we're gonna be witnessing peak cinema in just a couple of months.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, you'll all find out what we watch next, and I'd say both of us highly recommend this. So give it a watch. You got to pay for it right now, but I'm sure it'll be on, you know, just paying for a streaming service streaming soon. So, but I'd recommend paying for it to be honest. It's that good. I was actually most of the time I like see like rent this movie for like $15. I'm like, oh fuck that, but no, I'd fucking rent it again. Great movie. So
It's worth all the money and definitely a flick and not a flop.
most certainly. All right, thanks, folks. We'll catch you next time.